This podcast is brought to you by Customplan Financial Advisors Inc, an independent insurance managing general agency in Canada. FinancialPodcast.ca was developed with one goal in mind: to educate Canadians on important topics that affect their financial well-being and make it readily available to all. We welcome you to plug in and learn with us. If you have questions, please email us at contact@financialpodcast.ca.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to Financial Podcast. I'm your host, Darlene, and I'm very excited today for a couple of reasons. This is our very first video podcast, so please bear with me as we work through this setup. And secondly, today we're talking about online business insurance, and our guest is Tom Reid. Tom is currently the DX leader for the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada. And if you didn't know what that meant, I didn't either until about 10 minutes ago. It's DX, for those of you that didn't know, is data exchange. Tom has been in the insurance industry for over 25 years and has accumulated knowledge and experience in a wide variety of areas. Tom, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I, like a lot of people, fell into the insurance industry. In my case, it was in 1993. I had gone through a co-op program and worked for a lady during one of my co-op terms who reached out to me. I was working for a big global IT firm, and she reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to come and work for a company called Wellington Insurance?" And I said, "Sure, what's insurance?" And so the only thing I knew about is that I needed a pink slip to, not be arrested by the police when they occasionally stop me. And so since then I've spent quite a bit of time at what was then called ING, because ING had acquired Wellington and later on rebranded itself as Intact Insurance. Spent quite a bit of time there. I spent some time in the software development space, helped ING/Intact build one of the first broker portals that was truly web capable, and ended up integrating that with some of the leading broker systems back in the day, which an integration means one way at that time.
Okay.
And then had the opportunity to do some internal consulting for some of the brokers that Intact owned, and ended up being the COO at Canada, what was then Canada BrokerLink. It's now called just BrokerLink. Oh. And so that was great. Tons of experience. Got some direct contact with end customers, which I hadn't had to that point, and got to see how a broker ran, and got my broker's license. And ended up sitting on the Alberta Brokers Association board, which was really eye-opening. And then moved over to Aviva. Spent about 8 years at Aviva, where I ran distribution for the Western region, mm-hmm. and spent the last few years there focusing on working on Aviva's digital or broker digitization strategy. And then left there and worked, had a brief tenure at Trueflit Technology, which is a software company that develops technology for brokers, helping them attract and retain and service clients. And for the past year and a little bit, I've been on my own consulting, and my biggest contract is with IBAC, the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada. As you said, helping them push broker connectivity. The insurance, property and casualty insurance industry is, in my opinion, quite far behind other industries in terms of connectivity. And my work with IBAC is trying to change that.
That's some big hurdles, and it's a big list ahead of you. So I think
tell me about it. Yes.
Yeah, I think 2020 probably changed a lot for a lot of people, and a lot of.
So in fact, when you look at some of the stats, and it's hard to get really accurate numbers, but there are some stats out there that talk about how consumers are interacting with insurance digitally, and what you see in Canada. And Canadians tend to be a little bit more conservative about online transactions. Mm-hmm. Canadians have probably the best access to high-speed internet, in the world, or tied with some other countries. And Canadians do a lot of research on products they buy on the web. So something like 75% of Canadians will research their insurance provider and products and so on. But very, very few people actually buy on the web, right? So they do a lot of research and then they end up calling somebody.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. So, and what that means is, that's it's an adoption process, right? Nobody just decides that they're going to go out there and change their behavior. It's a process, right? So you get to the point where they start doing research, and they get comfortable, and they see some brands that they recognize, and they start to get comfortable, and they see, the same information on social media, through online advertising, through websites, whatever, and it starts to build up a level of trust. And that's when people start to push forward and say, okay, now I trust that this is legit, and I'm going to actually, put my credit card down. It's like 20, 25 years ago when ATMs came out, right? People didn't trust the machine. Like, they were used to getting cash from the teller, the nice person who they could talk to, and if there's a problem, they could ask questions for. And then it's like, a machine. Like, how do I know the machine is going to give me the right amount of money, right?
And how do I know it's going to come out of my account?
And if it doesn't, what do I do? Like, it's a machine. It's not a person. So there's a process of adoption, and absolutely, COVID in 2020 forced many people to start doing business online.
Yeah.
So most things are led by consumer adoption, right? Sometimes you get businesses that can predict the future or take a guess and get it right, but a lot of times it's consumer preference that forces businesses to change.
Well, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, is that consumer preference. But like this conversation started because there was an article recently about Next Insurance down in the US that provided business insurance to Amazon vendors online. And, like you just said, there's over the last few years, a number of insurance companies have made the application process quite a bit easier and more convenient by inviting clients to apply online. So what does buying business insurance online mean for the insurance world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when you think about it, the way I think about it is, there's personal insurance, so your home and auto, right? Joe Public, you and me, we buy insurance for a house or our condo or our apartment or whatever. We buy insurance for a car, and then there's insurance for businesses, and that insurance. And the reason why I differentiate between the two is they're quite different, right? So when you're insuring your house or your car, you're insuring the piece of property, and you're insuring your liability. Like, if you hurt somebody while driving your car, you're liable for that. Business insurance covers that kind of thing, so we don't insure the person's store. It'll insure, if somebody slips and falls and hurts themselves, their property, that liability is insured. But it also insures receipts and business interruption, and sometimes product liability, and sometimes there's workers' compensation involved. There's quite a wide variety of things, and while not everybody in the personal insurance side understands their insurance, it's easier to understand. And so when you get to the commercial side, the product itself is way more complicated. So generally speaking, most business consumers get a broker to help them, right? They get their broker, they get their insurance guy who's going to help them out. And that's borne out by the fact that 85 to 90% of commercial insurance is sold through the broker channel.
Okay.
Some of it, a small percentage, some of that remaining is sold through what's called the tied agent or captive agent channel. So the Allstates and State Farms and Desjardins and so on. Okay. But very, very little of that is sold through what's called the direct channel, and the direct channel is where the buyer, so in this case, the business owner or one of his team, is directly interacting with the insurance company, right? So there is no middleman in play, whether that's a tied agent or an independent broker. So what it means is that now the onus is on that buyer to make all the decisions. Mm-hmm. Right. So what kind of coverage does he or she want to get? So it's like I said, it's relatively rare that you see that outside of what Next has done. And so, that's a big hurdle for Next to get over. And, from what little I've seen so far, they're trying to make it as simple as possible. They're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to look at various industries and say, okay, if you're in this industry, here's what you need. If you're in this other industry, here's what you need. And so they're trying to simplify it quite a bit. We'll be interested to see if they're successful.
Well, it's like you said before, it's adoption, right? And I can't imagine a business owner buying this insurance and then discovering they're not covered for something that turns out to be critical.
So, that is the most important fact for business owners, right? Is typically a typical business owner has their life and life savings invested in this, right? They don't have RSPs, they don't have a pension plan. Their business is their livelihood.
Yeah.
And if something happens to it, as we've seen with COVID last year, there's tens of thousands of businesses that are gone under or about to go under. That's because of a global pandemic, but that's out of your control. So you want to make sure that the stuff that's under your control, you're doing it right. And
right.
Buying insurance is one of those things.
Yes.
So it would be, like I said, it'll be definitely interesting to see how many business owners think about it enough to take it up. Because I can see some taking it up because it's easy.
Right.
And it seems, insurance, I don't understand it, therefore it's not important. Therefore, it looks easy, it's cheap, boom, buy. And then they find out later on that, they weren't covered for something. Right? Even on in the broker channel, where, like I said, today, most business owners are buying their commercial insurance through, the broker's a professional. Like they have designations, there's professional requirements, and they also have errors and omissions insurance. So for the most part, the broker does a good job. Well, they haven't done a good job. That process that's the broker's fault, and they have insurance to compensate their customers if they happen to make a mistake, which happens very, very infrequently. But there's a double layer of protection, none of which exists when you're buying directly.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose for insurance. And I know Next Insurance is down in the US, but is there a Canadian option for that?
Not entirely. So there are a few digital brokerage. So they offer multiple carriers. So they offer a choice of product, and they're also backed by by a real brokerage who are independent from the carriers from whom they sell it. So there is to my best of my knowledge, there is no direct sales of that. There are brokerages who represent carriers who are transacting digitally.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that at least is a little bit of options. But in our previous conversation, we talked about how home-based businesses can have an insurance add-on from their home insurance, but that's not really complete from my understanding. So what are they missing from that kind of coverage?
Yeah. So, I mean, the home-based business is, first what I'm going to say is home-based business coverage differs by company. So it's kind of hard to give a very specific, direct answer to that. But the home-based business coverage on your homeowner's policy is meant for micro businesses, right? It's not meant for people who are going to come to your house, right? It's not meant to cover product liability. So it's sort of the most basic coverage that you can imagine. And when you graduate from your basement, let's say, to something a little more commercial, that's when you need a standalone policy. And the best way to figure that out is talk to your insurance broker, right? So most Canadian companies offer home-based business insurance through your home policy. Mm-hmm. So it's relatively cheap and it's relatively easy. You can call your broker up and say, hey, I want to add the home-based business coverage to my existing policy. It's pretty much as simple as that. Mm-hmm. And your broker will say, the broker will have a conversation with you and say, what does your business do? Do you have people come to your house? Do you ship stuff from your house? What basically essentially what kind of exposure exists? And then they will recommend, if you get to a certain level, well, you need a separate policy to truly be properly covered.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there's going to be a lot of things that are missed. And that's because business insurance can be complex. And this seems to highlight the importance of having a knowledgeable broker that's in this space, because that's going to be your best bet, right?
Absolutely. In the personal insurance space, you can get a lot of information online. You can even go to a number of online web properties and get a price for your car insurance or house insurance. They're not always super accurate, and there's always a little bit of some discounts that have been applied that may or may not be actually applicable to you as a person. But to go and find but information exists in the personal insurance space. In the commercial insurance space, it's next to impossible to find, even a price for a carrier X or Y. You almost have to go through insurance brokerage, and that is because it is more complex, and you truly do need somebody who's experienced in that and can navigate their way around it.
Yeah.
Even the biggest insurance companies with sophisticated, literally have risk management departments and teams work with brokers, and that's because that broker's got some expertise. They've got access to a number of insurance companies who may have differing products and different prices that may fit the client better than something else.
Right.
So the expertise and the access to market is in the commercial space you can't overstate how important that is.
Yeah. And for this kind of insurance, if it does move towards the online realm, how does an independent broker remain relevant?
Yeah, so that's where the connectivity comes into play. So a lot of brokers are investing in their digital properties, their websites. They're either building their own, or they're contracting with a company like a TruthLove, for example, or their own broker management system. All of whom have web portals for their customers.
Right.
So the final mile, so to speak, is the interaction between the insurance carrier and the broker themselves. That's what's missing. It's that connectivity piece. So the broker can provide information, collect information, do some basic stuff online today, but until they get that real robust connection with many insurance carriers, we can't have that full digital experience. But for the time being, brokers are pushing down that road, but there's still lots of work to be done to make it a seamless and useful experience.
Right. Well, like you said, it's complex, and there's going to be a lot to it that, a lot of businesses won't know and will rely on the expertise of an independent broker.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a lot of opportunities for brokers to improve their customer experience. Today, typically, there's an interview. If you're my commercial client and I'm your broker, we'll have, essentially an interview. We'll go through the process. I'll get you to fill out an application, which covers all the information about your business. I'll prepare a submission that will then get sent out to multiple carriers. The underwriters at those carriers will look at it. They'll get back to me after compare it. This can take days or weeks to go through that whole process. And meanwhile, the customer's sitting there going, what's going on? Like, why is this taking so long? And with proper digitization, a lot of that stuff can be automated and go much more quickly and much more seamlessly. So it absolutely gets done today. It's just in the 21st century, there are ways to do this dramatically better.
Right. And
so other industries have solved this problem years ago. We're behind.
Yeah. So it's not exactly reinventing the wheel.
No, we can just look at all the other wheels that are whizzing past us and copy one of those.
Yeah. Before we close off, though, in our prep conversation, we talked about Next Insurance, obviously. And I think what you said was that you felt something big was about to happen in the insurance industry based on Next Insurance valuation. Can you tell us why and what's going on with that?
Sure. So when I was digging a little bit into Next and trying to figure out who they were and sort of what the point was, they claim, so they they're privately held, so they don't post their financials or anything like that. But what they do claim is that they insure 100,000 business owners. Okay, so 100,000 clients. That's a lot. And that kind of business tends to be smaller, right? You can have commercial insurance policies that are literally millions of dollars a year, and you can have some that are, $1,000 a year. Okay. So the Next Insurances of the world, they tend to play in the smaller end of the scale, right? The small business, small and micro business scale, which tends to be $1,000 or $2,000 premiums, give or take, right? I'm generalizing somewhat, but if we say it's $2,000 per, that's $200 million of premium. Right. That's how much premium they're taking in. Okay. And they're valued at their most recent valuation was $2 billion. So that means that crazy. Their valuation is 10 times their top line sales. And there's been a number of insurance companies like legitimate long-term insurance companies, profitable insurance companies, acquired over the last decade or two. And typically the price being paid is, somewhere between the 1 to 1.5 times premium. So Next is being valued at close to 10 times what a traditional insurance company is being valued at. So that's dramatically, obviously, 10 times is a order of magnitude dramatically higher number. So what it means is, and the people backing this, these are not dumb people, these are smart people. So they essentially are banking on their belief that Next will revolutionize the digital insurance space, right? Because you don't pay 10 times more than the going rate for something that you think is going to be average or slightly better. You pay 10 times because you think you're getting in on the ground floor for something that's going to be world changing, dramatically better, turn the world on its ear, right? That's why you get it. Because you think at some point it's going to be worth 100 times. That's why you pay 10 times for it. So what it really means though is to me, what it means is the backers of Next are betting on the consumer's desire for convenience and speed. Right? There's been studies done by various broker associations. What consumers really want is price, convenience, speed. They want it easy. They want it quick. They don't have to do a lot of work, and they want it good. Mm-hmm. And what brokers really focus in on is the fact that they offer choice, which is great. Right? Consumers don't think about that, but that's where the brokers are to say, hey, it's choice. And it's the advocacy for the client. They operate on behalf of the client and the service they provide and so on and so on. And so when you get to the point where you're connected, you can have both of those things, right? So that's kind of that's I think what Next is saying is that they can get there first, they can get there best, they can be connected, they can use their AI to offer. They can't offer choice. It's only one company, but they can offer proper service. They can offer a good value, and they believe they can do that. And they're betting 10 times the amount of money that you normally would have bet if you just went out there and bought some regular insurance company. So that's a huge thing. Like I think the Amazon thing is a big deal for them because Amazon has built their whole business model on being convenient and fast.
Right.
It's easy to find. In fact, in this whole relationship, if you think about it, Amazon is actually, in a sense, the broker, right? Because Amazon is the distributor. Next Insurance is the manufacturer.
That's true.
And Amazon, so it's through Amazon that the customer is getting access to Next Insurance, just like if you're buying insurance through a broker, it's through that broker you're getting access to whoever the actual carrier is. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it's a big deal, is that there's this order of magnitude of valuation going into it and going through a distribution channel that offers what the customers are looking for.
Well, they could end up being a game changer, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops down in the US. And probably once we get past this, once we get past COVID, and things start to open up and return to some level of normalcy, it'll be interesting to see how many businesses have a greater online presence and what the need will be with Next.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it is. If I was a broker or agent or somebody in the middle, I mean, this is property and casualty, but it could be mutual funds or life insurance or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If I was in that position and I saw a company like Next essentially going around the traditional distribution channel and just talking to clients directly, I'd be a little bit worried about that. But I'd also recognize that, hey, you know what? The technology is somewhat ubiquitous. Like what I offer as a broker is that the choice and the service and the advocacy and that whole expertise piece. And if I can find a way to offer that in a digital fashion, mm-hmm. then my offering is actually better than Next's, or right. or whoever looks like Next. So to me, this is an opportunity. If brokers need another reminder that, hey, this is what consumers want. You can deliver that and more, but you need to get going on it. You need to get in that same space.
Yeah, and that's always the important part, is to actually get going on it.
Yeah.
So do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners and our viewers as of today with?
Not really. I think we've said most of it, but I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me on the inaugural video version of your show. I feel quite honored, and it's a great, interesting topic. And I think, just thank you very much for having me on and let me say my piece.
No, well, thanks for coming on the program today, and thanks for the patience while we got everything set up at the beginning. You've given everybody a lot of food for thought, and I think we all learned a great deal. How can people get in touch with you?
So there's two ways. If it's related to data exchange and IBAC, it's treid@ibac.ca.
Okay.
And if it's not IBAC related and you want to talk to me about helping out with your business, that's my main goal. Is I'm an independent consultant.
Right.
So that is that email address is Tom at grtr.consulting. And so for those of you who are thinking, where's the .ca and .com? The .consulting is actually the domain name. So it's Tom at grtr.consulting.
Wow. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody, all that information will be on the website and or YouTube and or Spotify. So I'd like to thank Customplan Financial Advisors for sponsoring this program. They are an award-winning managing general agency providing fantastic resources to the independent financial advisor. If you want to take a look at what they offer, you can just go to customplanfinancial.com. And this podcast is now on YouTube and Spotify, as well as financialpodcast.ca. You can sign up or subscribe to be notified of every new podcast. And if you have an idea for a podcast or know of someone that would make a great guest, please send an email to contact@financialpodcast.ca. We'd love to have your feedback. Well, thank you again, Tom, and I hope everybody has a fabulous day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The views expressed here are those of the participants and not those of Customplan Financial Advisors Inc., its affiliates, or subsidiaries. This is not intended to serve as a complete analysis of every material fact regarding any company, industry, or security. This presentation may contain forward-looking statements. Investors are cautioned not to place undue reliance on such statements, as actual results could vary. This site and podcasts are for general information purposes only and does not constitute investment advice and is not intended as an endorsement of any specific investment product or service. Individual investors should consult with an investment professional about their personal situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results. If you are unsure about what is the best course of action for you in your financial planning, then we suggest you consult a fee-based independent financial advisor or get in touch with us to discuss your individual situation. Our phone number is 604-687-7773.